Hey, I'm Felissa Rose, and you're watching Keto and Crime.
Hey everyone, welcome to Thought Crime and Keto and Crime. Today I've got a fun one for you. Today we're going to delve into, it's near and dear to my heart, the trashy world of TV talk shows. I know, I love them. I've watched them since I was a kid because my mom was slightly obsessed with them. And what I've done is put together some of the biggest cases of just weirdness and crime associated with TV talk shows that I could find. We're going to go over them, and I'm going to intermit little clips of them so that you can see exactly what happened. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. I wanted a nice little palate cleanser from all the heavy-duty murders and stuff we've been covering. I thought this would be fun. But never you mind, I'll be back to normal true crime with the next one. But I just wanted to kind of do something a little more fun. Let's delve into it, shall we? When did the whole phenomenon genre of TV talk shows start? Well, as far back as the 60s, but it really started in the early 70s when a young man by the name of Phil Donahue, pictured here for those of you watching on video, to your left, started his show out of Dayton, Ohio in 1970. And his very first guest was this lady, to your right, Madalyn Murray O'Hair, the founder and longtime president of American Atheists. Now, she has a whole lot of other stuff surrounding her that I'm going to cover in a separate case. Also got a friend that's it's on the board of American Atheists that hopefully is going to come on and give us some insight into that. But she's just she's got her own little thing going on, which I will cover. But suffice it to say that TV talk shows started in the place of game shows that were, except for maybe The Price is Right and a few others, were losing popularity. Also, soap operas were kind of starting to fall by the wayside just a little bit, so they wanted something a little different to take that place. So they brought in something they would hope would stimulate people's mind. And at first, that's exactly what happened. You have the early players like Phil Donahue that tried to put on more thought-provoking shows, such as his very first episode starring Madalyn Murray O'Hair, where she came in like a lightning bolt claiming there's no God, there's no devil, there's no heaven, there's no hell. Once you die, you just rot in the ground. That was pretty much. And you can imagine Dayton, Ohio didn't like that, so it was quite an explosive show. But Madalyn Murray O'Hair, like I said, is the founder of American Atheists. In the early 60s, she's launched the landmark case against the Baltimore City school system, O'Hair Murray versus Curtail, which actually got administration and teacher-led school prayer removed from the schools. Now, contrary to popular belief, you can still pray in the schools as long as it's student-led. However, officials cannot press their particular brand of religion on you thanks to this court case. And she's the one that did that. Well, as you can imagine, his show exploded in popularity just because she was so easy to hate in a very religious America in the 1970s. So he started it all and started it very controversial. But from this episode, it started to go downhill. Not just with his show, but with all other shows. From there, you kind of move down from thought-provoking, discussion-provoking shows into what we know as trash TV today. And this has further devolved into the onset of reality television as we know it today with the Kardashians and things like that. So just remember, Phil Donahue started it all, and the very first talk show controversy was Madalyn Murray O'Hair, and she was such a popular guest. She came back on his show several times, a couple of times debating with popular televangelists of the day. So
people, these holier than thou folks, you know, the ones that think they've got it up here and they have just enough to endure it instead of enjoy it. And, you know, they've responded well to me on Bourbon Street because they see I'm trying to help instead of hurt. When I first
are you really trying to help anybody, though, when you try to bring them to your beliefs?
Well, I haven't seen too many it's hurt. And that's the evidence you have
How
to
would
go
you be
by.
able to recognize whether or not they're hurt, though?
When you can see a home made out of a house and a man made out of a mistake and purpose found in a person's life. And
You know, though, I think that sometimes for the people in America, it might be well to make some homes into some houses, if you get the meaning of my terms.
I'm sure I get the meaning of your terms, and I'm hoping you get the meaning of mine, because I have never met a person who was dissatisfied with the way of life that I recommend. Can you say that about atheism?
Well, the atheists aren't dissatisfied with their way of life, but I think that we're dissatisfied when we see what the Christians are doing to the human community constantly.
I am too. I'm very dissatisfied, and this is why we have these Wake Up America crusades and trying to get us to do more for our God.
What's this? Wake Up America?
It's just a little name that we have trying to get God's people to wake up and put the Lord first place. Because
But you know, if America wakes up, what America will do is kick Christianity out, and all of you preachers...
The ones that I'm talking about waking up...
Check those out. Breast implants. Yeah, let's talk about them. They were all the rage in the 1980s. They were filled with saline and later on silicone. Well, lots of women got them in the 80s. They were fairly affordable cosmetic surgery to get, so a huge percentage of American women had them. However, in the early 90s, some issues started to come from the silicone ones, making people sick, giving people cancer, and there was a huge scare which caused a lot of people that had the silicone implants to have them removed and replaced with the saline. Well, there was a young lady in New Mexico by the name of Laura Thorpe. She was 39. She had gotten breast implants at the age of 37 and then became spooked when she heard all of the hubbub about the silicone implants and wanted them removed. However, her HMO, her insurance company, would not pay for them. So she did the unthinkable. One night after her husband and children had gone to bed, she went into her own bathroom, took a straight razor blade, and removed them herself. Later that year, a couple of talk shows caught wind of this story, and as you can imagine, they were fighting to get Laura Thorpe on their show because everybody wanted to know about this woman that removed her own breast implants. So she was contacted by both the Maury Show. Now, Maury Povich is still big today, mainly for giving paternity tests, but he's still big today. He started his career as a serious journalist, eventually went to the more campy TMZ, trash National Enquirer show, A Current Affair, and from there he got his own talk show. Sally Jessy Raphael also started out as a journalist and then received her own talk show. Both of these shows were huge in the late 80s, early 90s, and they wanted Laura Thorpe. Laura Thorpe originally agreed with the Sally people after the Sally people offered her extra days in New York, spending money, all their meals taken care of for her and her family to come and be on the Sally Jessy Raphael show. She went to New York to tape it. She was put into the green room of Sally's show and said that she was kind of appalled. Sally was always kind of a trashy talk show, whereas Maury could be a little more journalistic. But she said she was appalled by the nature of the people that were in the green room with her. Tattoos all over, piercings in every orifice. She said for her, who is this simple little New Mexico woman, she felt like she was part of a freak show at a carnival, a sideshow, so she just could not bring herself to go on and tape that show. She basically slipped out of the green room, went across the studio. A lot of these talk shows were filmed in the exact same studio. Snuck into the studio, the area, the building where Maury Povich was recorded. All this was at Paramount. And went down and actually found Maury's office. I don't know. I've been to those studios. I don't know how she got around security, but she got to Maury's office. He happened to be there. She sat down. She told him who she was and why she was there. She just did not feel comfortable taping on Sally. And asked him, because she enjoyed his show, asked him what he thought. And, of course, he launched into trying to convince her to go on his show. Just for a few minutes. He said, just let me send you to hair and makeup right now. They'll make you up. We'll get you on stage. We'll ask you a few questions. And we promise, you need to go back and fulfill your obligations to Sally, but we promise if you just give us a few minutes right now, we won't air it until after you air on the Sally show. So she said that she felt pressured, but she went ahead and said, okay. They all the time missing from the Sally Green Room. But all these shows are taped. None of them, I mean, they're before a live studio audience, but they're all taped. So they can cut out and insert anything they want to, what they want to do. So what they were probably going to do is just tape her for a few minutes and then insert her into some other show. So pretty simple. Took her to hair and makeup. She went out. He introduced her. She told her story. She took some questions from the audience. And then they brought in a plastic surgeon. And she said that's where she kind of got taken aback, because how did they know to have a plastic surgeon there? It turns out they got a far reach. They just called and had a plastic surgeon that had consulted on their show before, came right over. It's amazing. So he sits down, he talks with her, and he scares her. He says that he would like to examine her because she probably has some underlying infection because of the way the surgery was done. Needs to be checked for internal bleeding. He basically scared the crap out of her. And she, after the show was taped, she went with him immediately to a local hospital, was checked in, received an examination where the doctors told her she did have infection and needed a surgery to correct it, or she could go into septic shock and die. Enter Sally's producers, who finally track her down. They call the Maury show. They're angered, of course, because she's left their show and went over to the Maury show. They track her down at the hospital. They continuously call the hospital. In fact, Laura Thorpe said that they were calling the hospital so frequently that the nurses actually came in and said, you need to tell whoever's calling you to stop it, because they're really starting to become a problem. Well, they finally got her on the phone, and they threatened her that if she didn't immediately check herself out of the hospital following the surgery and come immediately the next day and tape their show, they were going to sue her. She got so scared, she put off her surgery, checked out, went back over to tape Sally, and was told, oh no, we're not going to tape you now. Don't worry about it. So the lady goes back to the hospital, checks herself back in, has her surgery, and manages to go home. But that's the story of the breast implants. One of the most popular shows of the 1980s was Geraldo. And if you're not familiar with Geraldo's original talk show, you probably know him as one of the more moderate anchors on Fox News. Geraldo's one that I watched every afternoon. He did a lot of what I thought really good shows. He did a lot of the trashy stuff too. But he was most well known for 2 episodes of his show. One, Al Capone's Vault. And when I do my video on Al Capone, I will definitely take you through that episode and what that was all about. But he's remembered for that. He's also remembered for his specials on murder in the USA and this Satanic Panic special, which I have mentioned in both my videos about Satanic Panic, and I'll link those right up here, and the McMartin Preschool. On top of those, he is most well known for getting his nose broken on live television. November 3rd, 1988, he had a show called Young Hatemongers, where he had civil rights leaders combined with people under the age of 30 that were involved in the white supremacy or Aryan Nation movement. Among those there was young John Metzer, who was a 20-year-old member of the white Aryan resistance youth. His father, Tom Metzer, is now 80-something years old, is a 20-year leader in the white Aryan Nation movement. So he came from a long generation of bigots. While there, trying to have a conversation with civil rights leaders, young Metzer became enraged with Roy Innes and called him an Uncle Tom. He basically said, I am sick of this Uncle Tom trying to be white. Well, as you can imagine, that enraged Innes. He jumped up, as you can see here, for those of you on the video to the right, grabbed young Metzer and began to choke him. Well, immediately all the people on the panel got involved, people in the audience got involved, studio security got involved, and Geraldo got involved, trying to break this up. And in the midst of it, a chair was thrown and Geraldo's nose was broken.
I was thrown out.
He was arrested for a felony.
A felony. Wait, hold it. Here we are. Question.
He reportedly served time for felony.
Well, I'd like to know if you're so. If
You wouldn't remember anyway.
If you have true belief in your convictions and your movement is as good and as powerful as you say it is, why are you afraid to let other people speak? Why are you not like other minorities and allow other people to pursue whatever happiness they find in whatever religion they find, whatever color they happen to be. You don't.
The aftermath of this, no charges were ever filed. They basically swept it under the rug, kind of chalked it up to a danger of doing that kind of show, and to this day, Geraldo Rivera says that people ask him, "How's your nose?" That happened in 1988. Imagine that as your legacy. Now we fast forward to one that's a little bit more modern. In 2017, Dr. Phil McGraw, famed psychiatrist that got famous because he used to counsel Oprah, as so many people do get famous because they know Oprah Winfrey, was accused of drugging his guests, or his producers were accused of drugging their guests. This all started during a 2013 episode in which the winner, pictured here to the left, for those of you on video, of Survivor China in 2007, he won Survivor China. Todd Herzog was a guest in 2013. He was on to discuss the PTSD he had suffered from being on Survivor had led him to take drugs and alcohol, and he was heavily intoxicated and under the influence of drugs while on the show.
Can you walk?
Barely. I have to have help.
All right.
Sorry, I'm very...
That's all right. Brandon, why don't you get over there and take Debbie's spot? All right.
Yeah, I'll go.
It was afterwards that he stated that when he arrived at the studio, he was not drunk, he was not high. He was taken to his dressing room, and there was a full bar and prescription pills. And so he said, of course, he partook and came out on set pretty well messed up. Dr. Phil has long since denied that he had anything to do with it, or his producers had anything to do with it. He was exonerated from it, but ever since then, the studio has put new regulations on what can be in dressing rooms and what cannot be in dressing. I don't know. Draw your own conclusions, but he was obviously messed up during the interview. Unless he came there, drunk, where else would he have gotten them? I don't know. What's my opinion? I don't think Dr. Phil maybe had anything to do with it. I do think he's kind of genuine and that he cares about people. I'm not a fan of his show, but I get that vibe from him. But in doing this research, I realized just how far producers of these shows would go to put on a good show, because it's all about the ratings, and the more volatile somebody is, the more likely they are to stop when they're flipping channels. So the more volatile, the better. So I can see how maybe some of his producers did that without him knowing it. What do you think? Let me know down below. Probably the most well-known talk show scandal of all ended in murder. Jenny Jones Show, one of the most popular shows from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, well known for being all trash. She had a show that was actually never aired. She's most well known for a show that never aired. But March 6, 1995, she had 3 people on. She had Jonathan Schmitz, Scott Armador, and a friend of theirs on. And during that show, Scott Armador revealed that he had a secret crush on Jonathan Schmitz. While they were out on stage, Scott and the friend talked about the fantasies Scott had had about this young man, all while he's in a sound booth and can't hear him. He's been told he's there to have a secret crush revealed. He assumes it's a female. So they didn't tell him. They wanted as much shock value as they could get. After they finished taping that segment, Jonathan's brought out. He gives everybody on stage kind of an awkward hug and sits down. And for those of you watching, Scott is the one top, bottom left. Jonathan is top right there. When he's let out, awkward hugs, sits down, and then Jenny Jones reveals that his secret crush is actually a man. Scott tells him about his feelings. Jonathan again gives him an awkward hug, kind of laughs, and confesses that he was 100% heterosexual, and so nothing would be happening.
man on it. And then Scott says, you look like a hippie in your car. And then you get out of your car. And then he told Donna that I was a good looking guy. And Donna told me, and I said, well, you know, it's flattering, but.
It's flattering, but you're not interested. There's no
I mean,
way. There's no way, right?
No, I'm, you know, now
Well, at least, Scott, at least you got it out. Are you very disappointed? Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me.
They finish the show kind of awkwardly. Everybody leaves, goes home. When they're back home in Michigan, Scott goes over to Jonathan's house and leaves a very provocative note on his front door, basically propositioning him. It kind of flips Jonathan out. Jonathan goes over to Scott's house and shoots him dead. He's arrested and in 1996 was sentenced 25 to 50 years for second-degree murder. His lawyer used PTSD from the show, depression, and Graves' disease, which is a autoimmune disease that can kind of make you're in a lot of pain, so therefore you're not in your right mind, as the defense. This was later overturned on appeal, and then later on, another trial, he was sentenced to the same thing. He did serve the majority of his sentence and was released in 2017. However, the family of Scott Armador did sue the Jenny Jones Show and her production company and was awarded $29 million, which was later overturned on appeal. Jenny Jones went off the air in 2003. And there you have it. The most amazing weird crimes that were catalyzed by talk shows. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it fun. As always, I appreciate like, comment, share, subscribe. It keeps the channel alive. If you can't afford to support the channel, because I am largely self-funded because I am heavily demonetized because of my true crime nature, down below you'll find some links to support me either at Patreon, Cash App, or PayPal. Never required, always appreciated. Most of all, just watch, like, and share. Thank you so much, guys and girls. I appreciate it. I'll be back soon with another true crime video. Hope you enjoyed this. Keto Comic. Out.